Remember Carolina Wilga? Of course you do. Over the last week or so, this 26-year-old German tourist that went missing in the Western Australian outback was the darling of the ABC and other media outlets, to be fair, who relentlessly covered her at every opportunity. ABC headlines included grave fears for German backpacker Carolina Wilga missing in WA's remote wheat belt. Police have released CCTV of Carolina Wilga. Police find vehicle belonging to missing German backpacker Carolina Wilga. What we know about missing backpacker, missing German backpacker. Search ramps up. Carolina Wilga's abandoned van. German backpacker Carolina Wilga found alive. Carolina Wilga's remarkable survival in hostile outback. Carolina Wilga's survival miracle. And on they went. Look, I get it. Not only was Ms. Wilga clearly very newsworthy, she was also so kind and appreciative of her rescue. In this article, Carolina Wilga releases statement after being found alive. The ABC published her full statement, where she said things such as, "First and foremost, I want to express a huge thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the depth of my soul. Previously, I didn't know where my place was in a culture on the other side of the world to my own, but now I feel a part of it. Western Australia has taught me what it really means to be part of a true community. Here, humanity, solidarity, and care for one another are what truly matter. I'm certain that I survived only thanks to this incredible outpouring of support. My deepest thanks also go to every single person who simply thought of me, and of course to my rescuer and angel, Tanya. I'm simply beyond grateful to have survived. And finally, thank you, Australia. You are amazing." Oh, it warms the cockles of your heart. She was the perfect rescuee. Humble, grateful, appreciative. I get why the media loved her. But in classic ABC style, they turned this feel-good story into a piece about systemic racism. And no, I'm not joking, thanks to the viewers who highlighted this. The headline read, "Carolina Wilga was found safe, but young Aboriginal men are still missing in the outback." My immediate thought when I saw this headline was, isn't the media themselves a huge factor in which missing persons cases gain traction? As we saw before, the ABC spammed the airwaves over the last week or so regarding Carolina Wilga, but I don't remember them ever talking about missing Indigenous man Clinton Lockyer. They probably did, but they certainly didn't push it as much as they did Ms. Wilga. So perhaps due to feelings of guilt, they published this piece. What's particularly telling is that in the article itself, the ABC wrote, "How the media has a role to play in missing persons cases. Ms. Wilga's case prompted widespread media attention, with hundreds of online news articles published on her disappearance over the course of a couple of weeks. But while the families of Aboriginal men missing in WA have made public appeals for information about their loved ones, there have been significantly fewer headlines about these men in the years since they were last seen." As I said, the ABC are just as responsible for this as other media outlets. They of course mention racism, stating, "The long-term effects of systemic racism. Recent research does point to an over-representation of Indigenous people among missing persons in Australia. Exclusive data provided to the ABC in 2019 showed Aboriginal people accounted for 17.5% of unsolved missing persons cases in Western Australia, despite making up just 3% of the state's population. So Aboriginal Australians are almost 6 times more likely to be a missing person than one would expect." They also talk about a recent Senate inquiry that blames racism, stating, "The final Senate inquiry report, published in August 2024, noted that systemic racism and discrimination, as well as disparities in media reporting, had historically hampered investigations into the whereabouts of First Nations people." As an aside, they provide a link stating, "First Nations women are being murdered at up to 12 times the national average. In some regions, their deaths make up some of the highest homicide rates in the world." In the article, they also interview a lady by the name of Robin Cotman, a private investigator in Western Australia. She also blames racism, at least in part, saying, "It sounds cruel to say, but when an Aboriginal male goes missing, most of the public don't care. It creates a more sensational story when it's an international person who is a female alone in the bush. Whereas when an Indigenous male disappears, it's like people don't feel like they can relate as much." Ms. Cotman also notes the public seems to engage less when there is a suspicion of drug use or criminality in the missing person's life, even if that suspicion is untrue or unrelated to their disappearance. Specifically regarding racism, she said, "I think there's racial profiling going on. It's easy to dismiss Indigenous males as gone walkabout or gone bush, so there's no urgency trying to locate them. Then you've got a female German backpacker who's alone in the bush. All of a sudden it's critical that she's found as quickly as possible. There just seems to be two different standards here." Of course, the Western Australian Police Force deny that racism affects their investigations. The ABC notes that the WA Police Force denies this, rejecting the suggestion that racism or neglect have affected searches for the 5 missing Aboriginal men. They said, "Missing persons, regardless of where they are reported missing, are treated as a priority for the WA Police Force. All investigations into missing persons are conducted using the same underpinning processes and procedures." The ABC also interviewed Dr. Jim Whitehead, who oversaw search and rescue operations for Queensland Police for almost 20 years. They note that Dr. Whitehead, who does not have specific knowledge of the West Australian cases, says delays in reporting a missing person are generally not due to a lack of care or concern. Often this can be linked to a deeply rooted distrust of police or a reflection of the more transient lifestyle many locals live, or limited access to telecommunications in many remote areas. Dr. Whitehead says another complicating factor is that Aboriginal people are more likely to go missing in remote parts of the country, where there are minimal police resources to undertake large-scale searches. Of course, the family of the missing Aboriginal men are devastated. The ABC interviewed Clinton Lockyer, who is the auntie of missing man Clinton Lockyer. She said, "Of course, we're all glad the backpacker is alive, but it did hurt to see all the coverage. You think, does anyone care about our boys the same way? It's not nice to feel like their lives don't even matter. It really hurts." So I think the ABC honestly felt a little bit guilty. They put so much effort into lovable German tourist Carolina Wilga, but seemed to have neglected the missing Aboriginal men.